AutoGen. Build your own army of AI agents to complete any task.
In today's video, I will show you how to install AutoGen. It's got a whole lot easier since it's been released. You do not need any coding background to get it up and running. Just follow the simple steps and you'll have it powered up and running within minutes. I'll also show you how to make it run on OpenAI's latest model, GPT-4o. And we will test it by asking it to code up a bunch of video games for us. Spoiler alert, it's really good at it.
As AI takes over, make this your mantra. Let the robots do the work. Subscribe to stay on top of AI news.
So let's talk about how to install AutoGen Studio. Since its release, it got a lot easier. If you forget, here's their latest instructions, autogen-studio.com. And basically, you have to just follow the instructions listed on this page. You need Python, whatever version of Python that they say. You need a Conda environment. We will talk about Conda environments in a different video. So if you're not familiar with this, it's very simple to set up. And you have to do that first. You will also need, if you're using an OpenAI model, you will need OpenAI Key or Azure, Microsoft's cloud service for AI models. You'll need that to get this working, or you can run it locally. We'll come back to that. But step one is to create a Conda environment, and they give you the command here to create that. So we're going to search for Anaconda, and here's our Anaconda prompt. So Anaconda is a large kind of umbrella term for a lot of different stuff. They have a lot of things under that umbrella that has to do with AI, etc. We're using sort of one of their little useful tools that they provide, which is this Conda, which creates an environment. So environment, you can think of it as like a little pocket universe on your computer that's a little bit isolated, and that allows you to install whatever you need within that environment. And it's not going to interrupt anything outside of it. It's not a conflict with anything outside of it. So it's a way to kind of isolate and control those things. All right. So we're going to take this command and we're going to paste it in there. Conda create. So Conda is the program we're using. Create means create that environment. -n is we're going to name it. We're going to name it AutoGen Studio, right? And here's where we'll set the Python version. Again, check to make sure on this page that you're using the right Python version. Now, I already have this installed, so I'm just going to put AutoGen Studio 1 after it, just because I already have AutoGen Studio. That name is taken up by the original install. And I'll hit enter, and it's going to start collecting the package data that it needs. And it says, we're going to install these packages. So these are kind of just the baseline packages that you're going to need for anything, right? It has setup tools, Python, some database packages. It's just kind of like the basics that everyone will likely will need. So I'll hit yes, and it's going to go ahead and execute that. Next, you can use this command to activate it. They also provide it here on this page, Conda activate AutoGen Studio. And as you can see here, these little parentheses before, it was saying base. We were kind of in the base reality, if you will, in the base environment. And now we're in the AutoGen Studio environment. And actually, I'm supposed to put AutoGen Studio 1. I'll change to AutoGen Studio 1 because this is, I've already installed that in here. So you will say AutoGen Studio, most likely, if this is your first install. All right, so next, we're going to set our API key or our Azure key. A lot of developers that I talk to are saying using Azure for running OpenAI models is better. They seem to be more stable. So API keys will have a separate video explaining that. So basically, you need to have an account with OpenAI or with Microsoft Azure, and you have to set up an API key that's going to allow you to use all this. So we're going to put this in the chatbot now. So we're going to put this into the terminal, into the window. Now, export, that's a Mac OS command, and I believe Linux as well. On Windows, we're not barbarians. We don't use that command. We say set. I'm kidding, of course, about Windows being better. Actually, I am switching over to the Mac OS now. It seems like potentially it's a lot easier to use for a lot of this stuff, largely because a lot of developers are on Mac. And then what you do is you paste in your API key there. So kind of like that. I cover up the last of it, so I don't have to delete that quite yet. You want to be a little bit careful not showing your API keys to people. And once you do that, you just press enter. All right, now that you used export or set to set your OpenAI API key, next we're going to pip install AutoGen Studio, and that's going to install AutoGen Studio. And next, we're going to say AutoGen Studio UI, and that's it. This spins up the AutoGen Studio UI. As you can see here, it gives you this URL. This is basically not an actual website. This is running on your computer, but this gives you a little user interface that's easier to use. So usually you have to hit Control and click on it to open it in the browser. And then when you want to stop this application, you hit Control C. So at the end, you can hit Control C. But here we're going to Control click on this. And as you can see here, this opens up in my browser window. Initially, you're not going to have all this stuff. It's probably going to be blank, but this is where you get started. All right, so once you get into AutoGen Studio, you have three main tabs here: Build, Playground, and Gallery. Playground is kind of where you actually run these agents and see what they're doing. Build is kind of the customization section. And there you have four areas here on the side that you need to set up. So we have our workflows. So this is actually telling the agents what they're doing, which agents will be used in the workflow, etc. Then we have agents, the actual AI agents that will be running and executing the things you tell them to do in the workflows you set up. This will make a lot more sense once you see it in action. Then models. So we have GPT-4, we have some other models, as well as the potential to set up your own local models. And we have skills. So skills are basically where a lot of the functionality will come from. And this is where a lot of the customization comes from. So for example, let's say you wanted to generate images. Here's the skill for that. And this is actually just Python code. It's pretty straightforward. You import whatever packages you need here at the top. By the way, for people that don't code, I know a lot of this might seem complicated, but basically think of this as a recipe to cook something. You give it to the agent and they execute it. We're going to have a list of the various recipes or skills that are saved somewhere. So you're not going to need to write these up from scratch or even really understand what they mean. It would be helpful to be able to kind of at a glance understand what this is kind of talking about, but even that is not needed. You just need to know that this block of code does something. And then if you give it to the agent, they will use it to get the result that you're looking for. But basically what this is saying, so most of these skills will start by defining a function. So in this case, we're talking to DALL-E 3. That's the model that produces images. And we're telling model this, basically draw or illustrate images based on the user's query or request. Then we kind of describe what that looks like. We're describing the default resolution, etc. And here we're specifying the model that we're going to use, right? This is why you need your OpenAI API key, right? Because we're going to be using DALL-E 3. And then we're saving them into this saved files folder here. And this is checking if it was successful. And then most of these will end with something like this. This is saying returned save files. So basically how a function in Python works is we start by defining the function. So this is like a process that runs that does whatever you want it to do. And at the end of it, it returns something. So if your function is add two numbers together, right? So you define that function of adding two numbers together. Here you describe how to add those two numbers together, and then you return the answer, right? So if you say 2 + 2, return 4. So that's a skill. And again, really, in order to use a skill, all you need to be able to do is copy it, and then you can use that skill. And so here we have 3, save cat ASCII art. Then you have fetch profile. So this is fetches the text content from a personal website, right? So again, look, it's importing the packages that we need, defining this function. In this function where we're saying, given the URL of a person's personal profile, we scrape the content of that page and kind of take that text. And so what comes out of this function, we return the text that was scraped from that website. So this is basically, it goes online, finds something, and returns the text it found. And this one is, to produce these little pictures of kitties using ASCII art. And for all these, you can click this green button here on the top right to add a new one. So in skills, you can add a new skill. In models, you can add a new model. In agents, you can add a new agent. In workflows, you can add a new workflow.
Adding OpenAI's Omni model, aka GPT-4o.
And of course, we have to talk about how to add the brand new Omni model, the GPT-4o. And what we're going to do to add that model is we're going to click on a new model, and we just have to write it out here. The OpenAI API Quickstart provides a lot of great resources. If you ever forget what it's called, what the handle for it is, you can just go here and everything will be listed here, including pricing, context length, and the names of the models. So for example, for GPT-4o, there are two sort of handles for it. This one is the one that we need. We put that in there. Once we added the API key in here, let's click test model. Model tested successfully. We'll change this to latest Omni model and save it. Now, as you'll note here, they're saying changes made to your model do not automatically get updated in your workflow after creating or editing your model. You must also re-add it to your workflow. All right, so let's start a new workflow. We'll call this the Omni workflow. We'll leave everything as is. Under the user proxy, we'll add GPT-4o, whatever skills we might need for that particular task. And the same thing for the primary assistant. Instead of the old model, we're going to be using the Omni model. And we'll click save. Okay. Now we have our Omni workflow. Let's test it out.
Let's code up some video games.
Create a new workflow. And here you're going to write, create an outline for a Tetris game and then code it with Python. Click go. And again, we can also keep an eye on what's happening here in the background in the Anaconda terminal window. And there it goes. That was surprisingly fast, which I guess not surprisingly, since the Omni model is supposed to be twice as fast, I believe, but still interesting to see. And so here's our code. Let's try it out, shall we? I'll paste it into Visual Studio Code. For some reason, this is not code. This is part of the description. And that's interesting. So when I click copy, does that not just get the code? Let me try that again. Yeah, it gets a piece of the text in here, but that's okay. We'll just delete some of this, and the rest looks pretty good. And there's a little bit more code at the bottom. Let's delete that. Let's see if we can run it. So the first line is import, so Python game. So we need to install that package. So we'll click terminal, new terminal, and pip install pygame. All right, let's see if that helped. And make sure you're in the right folder where you have this file. And then we're going to run Python and the name of the file, which is here, main.py. And boom. Oh, wow. And it coded up Tetris. Yes, I apologize. I know this is not professional, but I gotta say it coded up pretty well. This is called game testing. It's important to know that it got it right. I'm doing this for our benefit. Anyways, that worked really well. And I gotta say that was really fast. Maybe 4, 5, or 6 seconds is the total amount that it took to code that up and output this whole entire thing. Let's try it again with a Flappy Bird game. All right, so it gets to work. And yeah, maybe that was 8 seconds or so. So here's the code copied, and I'll just throw that in here. Same thing. It looks like for some reason it gets the description of the game as well, but that's okay. I'll just delete that. And looks like we need the same packages, pygame and random. Let's see if we have random or not. I'm just going to run main.py. So it looks like it needs a couple images here: bird, background, pipe, and bass. I'm actually curious if it can create those for us right within the same workflow. I'm going to say create the following images for the game, and I'll just paste the code in there as it wrote it. Let's see. So here's the output. So it's talking about how to create those images, and actually gave me a code that I can run that will generate those images in the same directory. So it's saying save the above code in a file named createimages.py. So I just created something called create_image.py. I'll open it in here, and we'll take this code that it gave me and put it into there. So as you can see here, here's how it's going to create the base image, pipe image, bird image. All right, so first we have to run that create images program, which is going to create those images within that file. So there it is, Python create images.py. So that ran, and as you can see here in the folder, it created these beautiful images of this. For example, is a bird. As you can obviously tell, it's a bird. And base, this is base. And of course, pipe. And now let's run Python main.py and see where that takes us. Well, that was fast, but let's see. Okay, so spacebar to flap my wings. And I mean, that's looking pretty good. There's no way to win this one. Here, ChatGPT is teaching us about Kobayashi Maru. It's a no-win scenario. The solution to Kobayashi Maru is not to play.
But you know he's going to play it again anyway. There he goes. Kobayashi Maru strikes again.
So I gotta say, that's very impressive. It's nailing those things, I would say, on the first try. Yes, we had to add some more functionality here to create these images, but still I find that very, very impressive. All right, so let's take this out for a spin. We just have the basic skills, models, and agents that everybody has when they start. And we're going to click on workflows. We're on the build tab here, and we're going to just start the general agent workflow. All right, so to do that, we head over to the playground, and you can start a new one. All your previous ones are going to appear here. So this is just a blank one. So let's start by asking to draw an ASCII cat for us. So that was one of the skills that it had. So we'll just to test out that everything's working, we'll test that out. We'll click enter. So it gets to work. Now in the background, you have your Anaconda terminal window running. And here you can actually see what's happening behind the scenes. So as you can see here, it's running, it's calling the functions, the skills that it needs. This is the skill name ASCII_cat.py. So it's using that to create that output, and it says, okay, we're done. So if we go back to here, here's the agent messages. So this is the conversation that we had, and here's the ASCII cat that it printed. Looks like it had run into one issue, but it was able to figure out how to fix it. So let's give it something more complicated. Let's try stock price. So if we click on that, it says plot a chart of NVIDIA and Tesla stock price for the year 2023. Save the result to a file name NVIDIA_Tesla.png. All right, so as you can see here, again, you can go over what happened in the terminal. It shows you everything line by line, what it executed, the code that it ran to do that. Looks like it installed Y Finance, that's Yahoo Finance, and Matplotlib. So this is to create charts. So every once in a while, it's really fascinating to look through exactly what it's doing behind the scenes to create those outputs, because there's, obviously a lot that's happening. But here's the messages that the agents went back and forth and they talked to each other. And actually you can see the outputs here. It was installing the packages that it needed, etc. And finally, at the end of it, here's the files that it has created with the chart of the prices of those two stocks. Very cool. Another skill it has is to generate images. So let's ask it, we'll say generate an image of a hot cup of coffee. Let's go. All right, and there it is. So it used DALL-E to create this beautiful cup of coffee. Excellent. So as you can see, this is pretty straightforward. You just talk to your agents here. They execute what you want it to do. The interface is very, very simple. But of course, the whole point is to build out something custom to you, some specific use case that you want to automate. And that really happens here in the build tab. We'll talk about how to use this in a different video. But the point is, once you have all those skills and agents set up, whatever needs to happen, you just type your message in here, and that workflow gets executed right here in this window with this thing running in the background. That's pretty much it. All right, but let's say you wanted to create a new skill for your agents to use. How do you do that? Well, we're going to click New Skill. And so it has some stuff here. I'll just go ahead and delete that. We'll delete the name and we'll start from scratch. Now, here's an example of a skill I have. It's just a few blocks of code. Now, we'll talk about how to get this in another video. But basically, once you have it, you have this block of code that does something. So in this case, this is a function that saves a web page that you ask for as text. And it saves that extracted text to a file. So this function takes in a URL and returns a file name. So I'm just going to copy this and we're just going to paste that in here. And we're going to call it save web page as text. So there it is, save web page as text. We're going to head over to my workflow, general workflow, and we're going to head over to the playground. We'll click new. We'll do a general agent workflow. And then let's say we take this Wikipedia entry about Jürgen Schmidhuber. He invented everything. And we're going to say, take this URL and save it as a text file. All right, so it comes back with this. So it uses the correct skill, as you can see here. So I've saved web page as text. And here's the text file that it's saved. And so here's that file, Jürgen Schmidhuber, Wikipedia. And as you can see here, so copied everything, the whole HTML, and saved it as a text file. Now, of course, we can change what it saves in that skill menu. So if we go back here, if you wanted to just save certain parts of it, certain like the text, you can adjust the elements that you extract based on your needs. Next, I'll show you a few more use cases for AutoGen, things that will allow you to automate online research, the creation of PDFs with various graphics in them, and how to have these AI agents automatically populate the PDF with the research that they're doing online. If you're interested in learning more about stuff like this, utilizing AI, creating autonomous AI agents, consider joining the Natural 20 community, our private network of AI enthusiasts that are all focused on learning AI, using AI, and not getting left behind. I'll leave the link down below. Find the latest 5 papers on arXiv about LLMs. Use DALL-E to create an image that goes along with the theme of the papers. Create a PDF with the image on page 1 and the text summaries on page 2. Save the PDF to my desktop, and we're going to hit play. Now, this is what's running in the background. It says to accomplish this task, I will perform the following steps, lists out all the steps, and starts searching arXiv for those research papers, finds several of them, here they are, creates a little summary, creates an image using one of its skills. We'll get to that in a second. Notice the PDF pops up on my desktop, and then creates a PDF, places the image, places the summaries, saves it to the desktop, and reports back. Here's that PDF. This is page 1, and here's page 2 with the summaries continuing into page 3.
That took the AI about 45 seconds to complete. It cost around 14 cents. It would take a human assistant 30 to 60 minutes to complete that task.
Pull the stock price info for Apple and Microsoft for the last 6 months. Create a PNG image that shows the chart comparison of the prices, and save that PNG to my desktop. So here it finds the libraries it needs, imports matplotlib, finds the Apple and Microsoft ticker symbols, the pricing for each, and then saves it to my desktop. There's that. Here's another one. Pull the total market cap stock info for Apple and Microsoft for the last 6 months. Create a PNG image that shows the chart comparison of the prices. Save that PNG to my desktop. So it installs Yahoo Finance, finds the market cap data for Apple and Microsoft here, plots the data. The title is Market Cap Comparison Apple versus Microsoft last 6 months, labels the Y and X axes with date and market cap in trillions.
Here's that info researched, charted, and labeled. If you found that helpful, consider hitting the like button and subscribing. All the cool kids are doing it.